Hello friends, and welcome to card 11 of my fall series for this year. Today I want to share with you how I created this awesome slimline card featuring some great products from Simon Says Stamp's new Stamptember release. I'm going to be using the lined leaf stamp and die set. This is from their newest Stamptember release, and I just love these leaves. And I wanted to do some watercoloring with them today. So I've got a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to be doing some heat embossing. Now you won't be able to see this very well until I get the color on the leaves, but basically what I'm doing is I'm taking my anti-static powder tool and I'm taking it all over this cardstock just to kind of help keep the embossing powder on the images where I want them. Once I have those all placed on my cardstock here, I'm going to stamp them down using some Simon Says clear embossing ink. I recently got this in my haul and I was really excited to try it out. I really do like it. It's really tacky. I was surprised whenever I started using it on these images. Now these images are new, so they're going to be they're not going to be seasoned yet. So I was really surprised. It really is sticks. As you can tell, they're kind of stuck to the images. So super sticky ink. It works really well. And I'm just using the sleeve on my sweater here to help me get a really good impression. You could use a dry erase eraser, I guess. Or you could use some of those new stamping tools that they have out. I just like using my sleeve. It's convenient and I don't have to get another tool to help me out. I'm going to be using some Brutus Monroe Alabaster White embossing powder to emboss my images. Now again, like I said, once these are embossed, you will not be able to see them until I get the color on. You can see them kind of here as I tilt this into the light, but once I get everything melted, it will be really hard to see. I thought about doing them in black, but I really wanted to have the white so I can bring the entire card together with some other white elements and some white heat embossing later. I'm going to clean off my images and get them placed back into the packaging, and I'm going to stamp the smaller leaf that I chose here. I'm going to stamp it again because I wanted 2 smaller leaves on the outside of my image and then 3 kind of gradually larger leaves coming inward. And I was inspired to get this stamp set because of Nicole Sporer. We all love Nicole, and the card that she created using this set was the reason that I purchased it, and I just loved how that turned out, and I couldn't wait to use these stamps once they came in. I got my haul video done and I got right to crafting, so I had a lot of fun making this one. Now that I have all of the embossing powder on my cardstock here, I'm going to heat it up with my heat gun. And like I said, you can kind of see it here when I tilt it into the light, but then once that heat starts melting that embossing powder, they almost disappear. And my kids, they still think this is really cool. They're always like, wow, where did it go? Or, you know, that's really neat. How does that work? And I have to try to explain to them that once it heats up, it melts, and it, you know, it's really cool. They really like it. Once I get those all heated up, I'm going to tape down my cardstock to a hard surface. Now, I ran out of painter's tape. I have to get some more. I keep running out of things when I want to use them. So I just used some washi tape and to kind of just help hold it down. I don't use a ton of water, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. And I'm just using some Distress Oxide inks. Here I'm using Fossilized Amber, Crackling Campfire, Spiced Marmalade, Vintage Photo, and Peeled Paint. And as you can see here, I've got my panel attached to my hard surface here, and I've spritzed the cardstock with some water just to get the color flowing. And I'm just going in and I'm just dropping color in. This is very similar to the card that I did with the honeybee images, where I was just kind of painting the color in, but I really got the color to move this time on these ones, and I really loved how it turned out. Now you don't have to use Distress Oxides. I always forget that I have the regular Distress inks, and I've got more variety of colors, but these ones were sitting here on my desk, and I really liked the way that they turned out. They were really nice and soft, and it went well with the card idea that I had in mind. Again, I'm just going in and dropping that color in, and now you can see the images coming through from that embossing, because that embossing powder, when it melts, it gets really kind of slick and shiny, so the color is resistant to it. It won't stick to those areas, and that's how you get that really cool white highlight almost. I'm just going in and filling in some other areas that I felt needed a little bit more vibrant color, and then I'm going to go around the edges of each of these images to make sure I had lots of color, because when I use the dies there will be a slight border around them, and I want to make sure that there's some color in there as well so we don't lose the actual shape of the leaves. And these turned out so great. I love this, and I kind of have an idea. I've got lots of ideas on how to use a similar technique for another card. I'm going to heat this up to make sure it's nice and dry, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add some brown splatter and some white splatter. The brown splatter didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. It kind of splattered everywhere but the leaves. It still turned out pretty good. I wasn't too overly concerned about it. You could easily leave this step out. I just felt like adding a little bit of interest and texture. I'm going to be taking some white gouache and doing the same thing, just adding some splatter. Now this will fade a little bit into the color because it is distress inks and they react to any kind of moisture, so they won't stay white for very long. Then I use the coordinating dies and I cut all of those sweet leaves out, and I just love how they look once they're all trimmed out. I've got a piece of Simon's 120-pound cardstock cut to a slimline card, and I also have a piece of Neenah Desert Storm and a piece of Simon Says Schoolhouse Red. And I wanted to add a little bit of interest to this Schoolhouse Red, and I took some aged mahogany distress ink. This is just a regular distress ink, and I went around and just inked the edges a little bit. Again, you could leave this step out if you want to, but I wanted to just add some interest. Go around the edges, make sure that's nice and inky. And I love the way that aged mahogany looks on top of Schoolhouse Red cardstock. I just think it's fantastic. Now, I forgot to turn my camera on during this step, but I wanted to add a little bit more to this Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, and I really loved all of those leaf images, so I wanted to showcase them on this card as well. So I just took each of those leaf images and I arranged them onto this panel, and I'm stamping them down using that same Simon Says clear embossing ink, and it turned out great. I stamped it twice just to make sure I got a really nice dark impression, and I love how it kind of ties everything together. I kind of struggled with figuring out an idea to go with these leaves, but once I came upon this, I fell in love with it. I love using embossing ink to create kind of like a watermark look, and this turned out so great. I love this. You could easily just stamp this on a panel and add a sentiment card. Done. You know, maybe add a few embellishments and you've got another great card idea. And at first it doesn't look like it's stamped down really well, but then once it dries, it smooths out and it looks amazing. Now you can see we kind of have our idea laid out, but I wanted to kind of make sure that those leaf images stood out a little bit more. So I took some heavyweight vellum. I'm not sure where I got this particular brand, but there's lots of great options out on the market. And I love how it kind of just mutes those leaves in the background just enough to really make sure that these colored leaves pop. I'm going to take some liquid adhesive and I'm going to attach our Neenah sheet down on top of our red piece. And I love that beautiful red border around it. Looks really good. Brings the red-ish colors back in from the leaves. Now on the vellum here, I wanted to make sure that my leaves were really straight because this is the focal point of the card and I didn't want to have any wonky leaves. So I just used the grid mat here and I lined up all of the stems along the bottom. And I'm going to attach all those down with this Barely Arts liquid adhesive. I really wanted to use this one because it grips really quickly. You get a little tiny bit of wiggle room, but once it's there, it's there. And I wanted to make sure that once I had these in the place that I wanted them, they were not going to move or shift. And this glue was really, really great for that. And I love the gradients where you've got that nice big maple leaf in the center and it kind of gradiently goes down to the smaller leaves. These are some of my favorite leaf shapes as well. And then once I have all of those attached to this vellum, I'm going to flip the vellum over and I'm going to use some 3M foam tape to pop this panel up off of that background, and that will make it kind of a little bit more muted, and you'll still be able to see what's underneath, but bring the focus again back to those leaves. And this turned out great. I struggled, like I said before, getting this idea. I had it in my mind, and then I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe I could use pattern paper, or maybe use a stencil or a background stamp. But I really wanted to show that you could use one stamp set and create an entire card. Create a background, create a focal point, and use a sentiment from the same thing. And I love this idea. I think I might try it again, just using one stamp set and creating an entire card with it. And I added just a little bit of liquid glue to that foam tape as well, so I had a little tiny bit of wiggle room to make sure that those leaves and that panel were nice and even and straight on that card base. Now I'm going to go in with my greeting. I am taking some Simon Says Cool House red cardstock, and I'm going to heat emboss the Autumn Greetings sentiment from the same stamp set with some Brutus Monroe Alabaster White embossing powder, and then I'm just going to use a flag banner die from my Blueprints 27 die set, and I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to add a little bit of inking to that as well, just so it kind of ties in with the red that's already on the card, just to kind of, again, give it some interest, make sure that it all kind of blends together. And I thought about popping this up as well, but I decided just to glue it down. There was already some nice dimension on the card, and I centered that on that maple leaf, and I just love how that looks. Everything kind of came together. I thought about adding some more embellishments, but sticking with that, attaching this to my white card base, and I just love all of these little mats all the way around. Looks great. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Wink of Stella glitter brush pen, and I'm going to add it to the sentiment here, and that will finish up this card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did. If you did, hit the like button as well as the subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos here at my YouTube channel. I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll see you again real soon. Bye! On screen, I've got a few videos that I think you'll enjoy. Consider hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more videos at my YouTube channel.